The natural route to take from Ahmad Parvez's work is into that of Bashir Mirza. They were both near contemporaries. They both was the self-styled bad boys of Pakistani art, and they both were seminal painters. The treatment of color at some level was extremely similar between these two artists. And yet, during certain stages of their career, Bashir Mirza did take his own trajectory. For those of us who don't know, Wahab Jafar is perhaps the most authentic treasure house of Pakistani art history, because he's lived through that whole modern art movement. He's interacted very closely with the artists of that time. And I wish one has the occasion someday to sit with Wahab Jafar and hear him speak about those days. In the context of what's happening today, those seem like the quintessential good old times.
Those days were fantastic days. I regularly visited Bashir Mirza's studio, as I did Ahmad Parvez's studio and other studios.
You don't get that kind of access again, Wahab Jafar. If you now ask an artist that if you can go and see them work, they would possibly say no.
Even at that time, there were artists who would not allow you to step into the studio. One of them especially, whenever I visited him, he used to always ask me for books from my library, books on art, so that he could use them. And every week I used to go to him, take a couple of books and get the other books back.
And he'd never allow you in?
As soon as I reached his studio, he would come out and lock the door.
Can we know the name of the gentleman?
This is Jamil Naksh.
Okay.
Some artists are shy of
sharing their
working space. Perhaps they get nervous. They might think that I'll take something away from them. But art is art. It's like a fingerprint. The color combinations and color application is totally different.
Coming back to Bashir Mirza, unlike Ahmad Parvez, who seemed to paint continuously in the same vein, Bashir Mirza was, he painted in phases, and there is a certain chronology by which you can identify his work. There was the Bashir Mirza of the Lonely Girls.
Yes.
There was a Bashir Mirza of the sketches. And we have purely abstract works, such as the Sydney landscape, the canvas lying behind us. This riot of color, and pure abandon versus the painstaking, hard-edged work of the Lonely Girl series or the Flower series.
You'll be surprised to know, even after the Lonely Girl series, he did abstract work. He used those small tubes of paint directly on the canvas.
Okay, without a brush?
Some parts of it were brushed, obviously, but major portion of the canvases were direct from the tube, and there were songs in color. This was, I think, in 1974, when Mehdi Hassan was there. He himself said, well, it sounds like music, looking at the painting. So,
and that's a very important comment, on abstract art and the nature of abstract art.
And
there is no right and wrong way of interpreting it.
Basically, he was a academic artist who beautiful drawings and sketches. Early period, I'm talking about the 60s, especially just before going to Germany. He had a gallery in Karachi before he left for Germany.
Was this the first gallery to open in Karachi?
Yes, yes. That was the first gallery. In 1965, it was supposed to have opened, launched in September, but due to the war at that time, September war in 65, it was delayed and it was launched in November.
Actually, Bashir Mirza was one of those who's really lived many lives. He was a gallery owner, he was a businessman, the owner of an advertising agency, he was the cultural attaché, and he was an artist and bohemian. And you see him change form, change tack, every time he's sort of slipped into another persona. And I think that is the sense that you get from his work as well. But one thing that always remains, besides his sketches and his drawings, is a deep attachment with color.
Oh yes, of course. So that time was full of color, in a sense, because the artists living those days and painting those days, like Bashir Mirza, Ahmad Parvez, even Maqsood Ali and others, they were all using very good colors, except Sadiq Khan. Even Jamil Naksh, he was using good colors at that time.
But his palette was more monochromatic.
Yes.
You know, as opposed to somebody like Ahmad Parvez and
Different
Bashir Mirza.
different
Exactly.
paintings.
You know, it's a totally different expression that he was trying to get.
I remember once when Ahmad Parvez in 1977, I think it was, he exhibited at Bashir Mirza's Gallery 2 in Sindhi Muslim Society. And he sold quite a few paintings, but they didn't get along very well.
And what did they have to say about each other's work? I mean,
They used to really go after one another at times. And there were fist fights also sometimes.
between the two of them.
Yeah. It was a love-hate relationship.
But somehow Bashir Mirza and Ahmad Parvez didn't quite enjoy the cachet that somebody like Sadiq Khan did or Jamil Naqsh did. Why was that?
I don't know what was the real reason for that, but Bashir Mirza and Ahmad Parvez and Sadiq Khan and Jamil Naqsh, they were all together at times at Indus Gallery. We used to meet there once a week. Dr. Naqvi was a regular visitor there. Shahid Sajjad used to appear also, and many others.
Ali Imam's Indus Gallery was really the epicenter of modern art in Pakistan. It served as a meeting point for critics, artists, collectors. A lot of the art that came out, you know, sort of the genesis of it was at Ali Imam's gallery. You know, there was a dialogue, there was an exchange, heated arguments and fist fights. But despite that, it spawned a series of artists who took the modern idiom forward in Pakistani art history.